Here at Imola last year, we had one of the most dramatic races of the season.
Senna's in trouble, could be fuel, so Senna slowed right down out of the blue, and one would hand there is Stefan Johansson right behind him.
Ayrton Senna has had victory snatched from him by Stefan Johansson in the Ferrari.
And that's Johansson. Johansson's in trouble now. Johansson is probably in fuel trouble, and Prost has now gone into the lead.
Alain Prost raced across the line brilliantly to win the 1985 San-Marino Grand-Prix, having judged his fuel consumption to perfection because he ran out of fuel on the run-down lap, only to have victory dashed from his hands when his car was weighed at the end of the race to be found a mere 2 kilograms underweight, and he was disqualified. Alain Prost, like everybody else, will be watching this fuel digital readout counter very carefully indeed.
Ayrton Senna now leads the Drivers' Championship from Nelson Piquet, with Nigel Mansell in third position, Jacques Lafitte and Alain Prost tying for fourth place, and an equal sixth, Keke Rosberg and René Arnoux. In the Constructors' Championship, it's a tie for the lead between Williams and Lotus, a tie for third place between Ligier and McLaren, with Benetton in fifth position and the Tyrrell team in sixth place.
So, deeply conscious of the fact that today's San Marino Grand Prix is just as much about fuel consumption as speed, the 26 starters line up on the grid with Ayrton Senna's Lotus in pole position for the third time in 3 races this year. Second on the grid, double world champion Nelson Piquet in his Williams. Third, Nigel Mansell, Piquet's teammate in brilliant form after his superb drive in Spain.
Ja, hier ist Imola live. Nochmals herzlich willkommen, liebe Formel-1-Fans, meine sehr geehrten Damen und Herren in Österreich. Startaufnahmen, Sie sahen gerade den Franzosen René Arnoux mit dem Ligier Renault. Er ist im Training der schnellste Pirelli-Fahrer gewesen, aber auch Gerhard Berger hat im Training sehr beeindruckt. Sie wissen, er war voriges Wochenende beim Testen der absolut schnellste. Er war gestern Vormittag beim Training mit den vollen Tanks und mit der Rennausrüstung, mit der Rennabstimmung über eine Stunde lang schnellste, hatte dann einen elektrischen Defekt und ist deshalb dann auf den 6. Platz zurückgefallen. Das ist sein Teamkollege bei Benetton Tollman, der Italiener Theo Fabi. Fabi 10. im Training, Gerhard Berger 9. und heute Vormittag, wie gesagt, mit Regenreifen auf feuchter Strecke, Gerhard Berger 4. schnellster, hinter Rosberg, Senna, dem Trainingsschnellsten, und Alain Prost. Das ist der Wagen von Theo Fabi, steht in der 5. Startreihe, wie gesagt, neben Gerhard Berger. Wie schaut es mit dem Wetter aus? Es gibt von der Flugwarte Bologna düstere Prognosen, dass es regnen sollte. Für diesen Fall gilt natürlich die 2-Stunden-Regel, denn bei Regen 2 Stunden darf kein Grand Prix überschreiten. 2 Stunden ist also die Maximaldauer für dieses Grand Prix und wir haben an sich 60 Runden vorgesehen. Autodrom von Imola, Autodrom Dino Ferrari, so benannt nach Ingenieur Alfred Dino Ferrari, der 1957, wenn ich mich richtig erinnere, als damals 27-Jähriger gestorben ist. Er war der Sohn des Enzo Ferrari und zum Gedenken an seinen Sohn hat Enzo Ferrari dieses Autodrom hier nach ihm benannt. Eine der schönsten Strecken, die es im Grand Prix-Sport überhaupt gibt, man hat sie schon den italienischen Nürburgring genannt, bergauf, bergab, es gibt sehr schnelle Passagen, dann gibt es wieder sehr, sehr enge und langsame Kurven, pausenlose Wechsel, Bremsen, Beschleunigen, bergauf, bergab, 3 Schikanen, Höchstgeschwindigkeit im Training war 328 Kilometer pro Stunde, erzielt vom Ferrari-Fahrer Stefan Johansson. Es gibt kein anderes Rennen, das so viel Sprit braucht wie Imola, durch diese lange gebogene Zielgerade und durch diese viel Beschleunigungsmanöver. Alle Motoren heute am Limit, 195 Liter, das wissen Sie. Wir hatten voriges Jahr, als noch die 220-Liter-Regel galt, als die Autos also 25 Liter mehr verwenden dürften. Wir hatten voriges Jahr schon alle möglichen Probleme. 4 Fahrer sind damals in den letzten Runden ohne Sprit liegen geblieben. Senna, der Führende, bereits 3 Runden Verschluss. Dann Johansson auf Ferrari, der eine Runde geführt hat. Piquet, der gerade um den 3. Platz kämpfte. Alain Prost, dem vermeintlichen Sieger, ist nach der Ziellinie der Treibstoff ausgegangen und er wurde später als Sieger disqualifiziert, weil der McLaren um 2 Kilo, 1,8 Kilo genau, zu leicht war. Diesmal haben die FISA Funktionäre, die technischen Kommissäre, ein bisschen nachgeholfen. Man hat die Waage auf alle Fälle mit 541 Kilo geeicht, statt 540 Kilo, um also notfalls 1 Kilo noch Reserve zu haben, damit nicht unbedingt der Sieger wieder disqualifiziert werden muss. Sieger voriges Jahr war der Italiener Elio De Angelis. Und vielleicht erinnern Sie sich auch noch an das Training im vorigen Jahr. Damals hat Gerhard Berger zum ersten Mal Niki Lauda geschlagen im Freitagtraining, war 5. und war dann 7. in der Startaufstellung. Wir werden heute wieder dramatische Reifenwechsel, Boxenstopps erlegen. Jetzt werden alle Fahrer, sowohl Goodyear als auch Pirelli-Benutzer, irgendwann einmal zum Reifenwechsel hereinkommen müssen. Die Serie der Boxenstopps wird, schätze ich, um die 25. Runde herum beginnen, also knapp vor Halbzeit dieses Grand-Prix. Besonders belastet sind hier die rechten Hinterreifen aufgrund der sehr schnellen Linkskurven. Üblicherweise ist es ja der linke Hinterreifen. Und hier sehen Sie das Autodrom Dino Ferrari. Start, Zielgerade ist unten und ich werde Ihnen während der Aufwärmrunde vielleicht dieses Autodrom von Imola ganz kurz erklären. Trainingsschnellster links vorne auf Ihrem Bildschirm Ayrton Senna mit dem Lotus zum 10. Mal bereits in seiner Karriere und zum 3. Mal in diesem Jahr, überhaupt die ersten 3 in Brasilien, in Rio de Janeiro und auch in Jerez beim spanischen Grand Prix und auch jetzt in Imola. Genau gleich vorne Senna, dann Piquet und dann Nigel Mansell, also der Lotus vorne, dann die beiden Williams Honda, Piquet, Mansell und dann Alain Prost in der 2. Reihe und dann der schnellere der beiden Ferrari-Fahrer Michele Alboreto. Das ist die lange Start-Zielgerade von...
Das springt nicht an, während das gesamte andere Feld jetzt losrollt. Auch Huub Rottengarten fährt los und ebenfalls stehen bleibt am Ende der Piste jetzt Alan Jones mit dem Lola. Auch hier springt der Motor nicht an. Nun wird es alle soll. Jones Auto läuft jetzt, aber der West steht immer noch. Der Zackspeedwagen springt immer noch nicht an. Erik Zakowski und seine Mechaniker arbeiten am Auto. Das Auto kommt aber nicht in Gang. Nun wird es höchste Zeit, dass der Wagen entweder von der Piste geschoben wird oder aber, dass das Zackspeed-Team das Glück hat, dass das Auto doch noch rechtzeitig anspringt und Jonathan Palmer hinterherfahren kann. Aber noch steht der Wagen. Immer noch steht der Wagen mitten auf der Piste. Und es wird jetzt wirklich allerhöchste Zeit. Man macht noch einmal einen Versuch, das Fahrzeug zu starten. Palmer deutet an, man soll den Wagen anschieben. Das ist natürlich nach dem Reglement nicht erlaubt. Das Einzige, was passieren könnte, ist, dass der Wagen zurück an die Boxengasse geschoben wird und dass er dann aus der Boxengasse heraus starten kann. Aber man gibt die Hoffnung noch nicht auf. Das Lenkrad ist wieder aufgesteckt. Man versucht jetzt mit der Starthilfe das Auto ans Laufen zu bringen. Wieder deutet Jonathan Palmer an, schiebt nicht nach vorne. Man kommt mit einer neuen Pressluftflasche, um noch einmal den Start zu versuchen. Das Fahrzeug wird jetzt langsam geschoben. Erik Zakowski hinten am Flügel schiebt mit. Jetzt läuft der Wagen, springt an, aber Palmer muss jetzt, doch er kann noch, wenn die Fahrzeuge noch nicht die Ziellinie passiert haben, kann er natürlich hinterherfahren. Aber noch steht er hier bei Start und Ziel und wird auf jeden Fall an die Boxengasse müssen. Jetzt rollt der Wagen in langsamer Fahrt, während Sie hier auf dem Bildschirm jetzt sehen können, wie das Feld nach vorne rollt. Und es wird für Palmer höchste Zeit, von der Zielgeraden zu verschwinden, bevor die Startaufstellung hier erfolgt. Also Palmer rollt ganz, ganz langsam nach vorne. Sie sehen ihn ganz auf unserem Bild ganz links langsam rollen, zurück in die Boxengasse. Und er kann aus der Boxengasse, wie gesagt, das Rennen aufnehmen. Aber wir werden natürlich auch jetzt...
And Murray Walker.
60 laps, 188 miles, a long race, and fuel consumption is going to be the deciding factor.
Senna on the right and Piquet on the left. Jonathan Palmer frantically making his way round the circuit to join the grid. And there he is in the pit lane. Palmer in the pit lane, waiting to join the race. Senna gets away beautifully. Prost comes through and passes Mansell. Piquet is second, and it's Senna. Piquet, Prost, Mansell, Rosberg, as they go round the Tamburello, up towards the Retifilios. They've got a very heavy fuel load on, and as you can see, the Williams has gone through into the lead. Down to second place goes Senna, so we're not going to get a repetition of Spain at the beginning. Mansell is in fifth place. Off goes Nannini in the Minardi car on lap 1, and Brundle, who has come out in the spare car, having for the second race in succession crashed the new 015 car on the assembly lap, was very slow away. Coming through to lap 1 now. There are the two McLarens absolutely together, chasing Senna, chasing Piquet. So it's Nelson Piquet leading, Senna second. Then Prost and Rosberg. Mansell is in 5th position, Alboreto is in 6th place. Through to the completion of lap 1.
Yes, and Alboreto was a little bit unlucky at the start. He made a very good start right off the grid, and then a gap that he was heading for closed just as he was going into it, and he had to back off and lost the good work that he'd done. So, coming around to complete the first lap, and Nelson Piquet lets the tail run wide a bit there. He's got quite a healthy lead at the end of the first lap. He and Senna were pretty much neck and neck off the grid, but Piquet held the inside line as they came to the first corner, and he's really stretching that lead quite a bit. Senna second, Prost third, Rosberg fourth.
And at the end of that first lap, Senna was leading by 2 seconds, and you see the two McLarens are already closing up on Senna. Mansell still in 5th place, Alboreto challenging him 6th, René Arnoux is 7th, Johansson is 8th, Patrick Tambay there is in 9th position, and Theo Fabi 10th. Lap 2 out of 60. And the McLarens are in very good shape. In the warm-up this morning, Keke Rosberg was fastest. Alain Prost was 3rd fastest. And there was René Arnoux, the little Frenchman, in the Ligier, Senna, and the two McLarens. 2nd, 3rd, 4th. Nelson Piquet clearing off. Substantial distance now between Piquet, the Brazilian who won in Brazil.
Although I have no way of knowing for sure, that Piquet's got his boost turned up a little bit at the moment on the turbocharger. I think he's probably trying to get himself a little bit of a cushion of a lead so he can come back off the boost and get his fuel consumption sorted out that way. I'm sure he had it wound up fairly high for the run down to the first corner to make sure he beat Senna into the first corner.
Well, here he is coming out to complete lap 2. He was leading by 2 seconds at the end of the first lap. He's now well away, and the gap is 3.94 seconds. Senna is second. Prost is in 3rd place and looking right to challenge, pulling away a little from Keke Rosberg, who is in 4th position, and then Nigel Mansell and Alboreto 5th and 5th.
And look at this. Prost is going to have a look down the inside, but unfortunately the director isn't having a look. No. Senna, a very, very hard man to pass. He will have been very late on his brakes that time, realising he was under pressure and ready, of course, to move over and block the inside line. So this looks as if it's going to develop into a battle. I can pretty much guarantee that Senna is going to be very hard work to pass, and it's not easy for Prost because he's got teammate Keke Rosberg breathing down his neck, so he's in that unfortunate sandwich situation where whilst he really wants to devote his full attention to getting past Senna, he can't do that because he's got to watch his rear, otherwise Rosberg's going to be through.
Well, now Johnny Dumfries is in 13th place, and that's a terrific performance because he started well down the grid after a dreadful practice, and he's carving his way up through the field. Alan Jones is in 18th position, and there goes the Ferrari of Michele Alboreto, the new 186 Ferrari with René Arnoux behind him. And the Williams clears the corner to go into the fourth lap now. And then it's Senna, Prost, Rosberg. As quickly as that, Alboreto, Arnoux. And in the pits, Nigel Mansell into the pits. And look at this, Senna is being taken, and Alain Prost goes up into second position. There is an early indication with Nigel Mansell into the pits and Rosberg going through, and Alboreto starting to gain. But let's not get too excited about this. Let us remember that this is a race of fuel consumption, and Senna will be... There is Nigel Mansell in the pits, and this is the fourth lap out of 60, but already it looks as though his race is run. And as I was saying, let us not forget that Senna may have turned the turbo down a bit to preserve fuel.
Yes, this is definitely going to be a tactical race. Remember the Grand-Prix here last year when practically all the front runners ran out of fuel in the last 5 laps, and in fact Prost was the only front runner who managed to finish, and then of course the car was a couple of pounds underweight and he got disqualified for that, and Elio De Angelis, who'd never led the race at any stage, was declared the winner. But and of course they've got less fuel this year than they were allowed last year. Last year they were allowed 220 litres, now it's down to 195. And it's probably the highest fuel consumption of any circuit they visit. So this is going to be the toughest race. But since last year, most of the teams have developed much more efficient fuel gauges that are really accurate, and technology has advanced quite considerably, and really the drivers... And Rosberg is now having a look at Prost, but Prost has the inside, and he's defending well, and Senna, of course, lurking in the background. That was a tremendous manoeuvre that Prost pulled on Senna a lap ago when he went round the outside of Ayrton Senna at that corner, and of course he took his momentum, the loss of momentum caused to Senna as Prost carved across the front of him as he passed him, of course allowed Rosberg to slip through as well.
Well, of course, kicking Rosberg now ahead of Prost, so the Finn has taken the Frenchman, and it's the first time he's been ahead of him this season as far as I can remember. And now on lap 5 out of 60, it's Nelson Piquet leading. It's Rosberg in second position. It's Prost in third place. It's Senna in fourth position. Alboreto is fifth. There go the two McLarens. And Senna round the Rivazza. And Mansell is back in the race. And you can see that Michele Alboreto is very slowly reeling in Ayrton Senna. Alboreto fifth, and there is René Arnoux in the background in sixth position. Seventh is Stefan Johansson. Eighth is Torbe. That's a terrific performance. Ninth and 10th, the two Benettons of Fabi and Berger. 11th is Patrese. 12th is Boutsen. Johnny Dumfries is in 14th position. Alan Jones is in 15th place. Martin Brundle is 18th, and Jonathan Palmer once again seems to be out of the race at this very early stage. Now we're getting a great scrap because those four cars, the two McLarens and Senna and Alboreto, are closing up, and there are the two Benettons closing on Johansson.
And Nigel Mansell had electrical trouble, we understand, but he is in fact back in the race now, so whatever it was, they appear to have fixed it, but he lost a fair bit of time. And the fastest lap so far has gone to Alain Prost, who is, and he's done a 31.8, which is pretty quick motoring round here. I would doubt whether they can sustain that sort of pace, or the equivalent pace. Obviously they get quicker later in the race as the fuel load lightens, but relatively speaking, I doubt whether they can maintain that pace for the whole race. I suspect that most people are being very tactical. They're using more boost than the average they'll be able to use throughout the race to start off with, to get them away and get the field spread out, and they'll probably have to come back off the tyre a little bit later in the race. Remember, we are expecting tyre changes around about half distance. Everybody has agreed that the tyres are not going to do the full distance.
Well, there is the battle for second, third and fourth place, with Keke Rosberg leading his teammate, world champion Alain Prost, in the yellow helmet and the black and gold Lotus. In fourth position, Ayrton Senna. Then in fifth place, Michele Alboreto. There he is, there's the Italian. And there, in sixth position, is Rene Arnoux. Now there's a battle going on between Johansson, Fabi, and now Tombe for seventh. And look at this, there are the two Benettons. Fabi is ahead of Johansson and Berger is right behind. So the two Benetton BMWs, which are getting better and better, race by race, are up with Johansson, and Danner is in the pits. Christian Danner in the Osella, the German European Formula 3000 champion of 1985. Now they're dropping down towards the Rivazza on this, the 7th lap out of 60. Second, Rosberg. Third, Prost. Fourth, Senna. Fifth, there is Alboreto.
Yes, Ferrari have once again come up with the goods, or look to be coming up with the goods in Italy. They have an uncanny knack of being able to produce on their home ground, no matter how bad their general form is, because they've been struggling a bit this season. The chassis doesn't seem to be all that it ought to be. It doesn't handle very well, and they weren't. Neither Ferrari was very quick this morning in the warm-up, in race trim, although they qualified better than usual. But here is Alboreto hanging on to the battle for third place and really going quite well.
Nigel Mansell is back in the pits, while you look at Keke Rosberg and Alain Prost, and now Ayrton Senna, and there Michele Alboreto, second, third, fourth and fifth. Rene Arnoux there in sixth position. Nigel Mansell is into the pits again, and so it looks as though Nigel Mansell is not going to score points. Johnny Dumfries is going very slowly. This is lap 8, the leader. Piquet is now over 6 seconds ahead of this battle between Rosberg and Prost, second and third. Fourth is Senna, and there is Nigel Mansell in the pits. Fifth, Alboreto. Sixth, Arnoux. Seventh, Johansson was, because Fabi's ahead of him now, and I expect Gerhard Berger to be very shortly. Seventh, eighth and ninth, virtually together. Patrese is still 10th in the Brabham, which has had a lot of gearbox trouble. The new 7-speed gearbox has been giving trouble here, and so now in 11th position is Jacques Lafitte, 12th is Boutsen, 13th Dumfries. Alan Jones is going well. He's in 14th position, and he's only 1 second behind Johnny Dumfries. And 7G means 7-0, 7 laps. 6 is Piquet leading, 2 is Prost second, 1 is, sorry, Rosberg second, 1 is Prost third. There is Senna, still striking sparks with the heavy fuel load, which is naturally decreasing, the car getting lighter, and that must be Hub Rotengatter, the Dutchman, in the second Zach-speed car, because Jonathan Palmer disappeared a long time ago, and so it looks as though both the 4-cylinder turbocharged German cars are out of the race.
Showing the form that was expected of him for this race, because the Honda engine is generally reckoned to be the most fuel efficient of the engine. Honda have really come on, and there is Johnny Dumfries in the pits. They're giving him a new set of tyres, but that can't be his prime reason for being in there, I wouldn't have thought, this early in the race, so I suspect that is just a routine operation. We can't actually see what they're doing to the car. But going back to the Williams Honda, certainly the Honda engine is, as I said, reckoned by most people to be the most fuel efficient, the most powerful for a given fuel consumption of any of the engines. And Piquet is already stuck in a faster lap than Prost and is going now looking pretty comfortable in front. He's got his 6 seconds, and I suspect he is now coming back as far as he can on the boost while still maintaining that lead. He'll be juggling to be using as little fuel as possible right now. The two McLarens, there they are, in second and third place, pretty much tied together, with Senna lurking not far behind, but struggling a little bit to hold them, and Alboreto clinging on as best he can behind that.
Hub Rotengatter out of the San Marino Grand Prix, and of course we saw Jonathan Palmer in the pits some time ago, and now lap 10, which is 1/6 distance, and you'll have noticed that nobody seems to be doing very much in terms of challenging anyone else at the moment. This was exactly what we expected. We all knew that fuel consumption was going to be the deciding factor, and as I say that, Jacques Lafitte in the Ligier takes Stefan Johansson, but the men up front will be watching their fuel gauges, which they have in front of them, very carefully indeed. What happens is that as they go past the pits, they have a board held out to them, which indicates what lap they're on and how many laps of fuel they should have left. They can see those complementary figures on their readout, but if the figure on the readout in front of them is less than the figure that is shown to them from the pits, they're in trouble and have to back off. 195 litres of fuel is all they're allowed. Prost goes through third, chasing Rosberg on the left in second position, and here is the Finn coming towards us. Senna behind the two McLarens in fourth position. Nelson Piquet is still leading. Watch for Michele Alboreto in the Ferrari, who should be coming round the corner. There he is in fifth position. René Arnoux is some 3 seconds behind. Patrick Tambay has had engine trouble, and the reason you saw Johnny Dumfries in the pits was because he has got brake problems. So, a recap on lap 11 out of 60. Piquet leading by just under 6 seconds. Prost, there he is. Prost is in third position. Rosberg is second. Senna is fourth. Alboreto is fifth. Arnoux is in sixth position. And watch now the Williams. And there is Christian Danner back in the race. And everybody is getting ready for tyre stops in the pit lane. They're all, the Goodyear runners are on the C compound, which is the softest for race conditions, with a special non-greening C compound rear tyre to cope with the special conditions that are posed by this Imola circuit.
Yes, and in fact, Piquet is settled in front, and Rosberg has very slightly reduced Nelson's lead. It's hovering around the 6 seconds. It was about 6.5 at one stage, but I do suspect that Piquet is adjusting his engine setting, his boost, and therefore his fuel consumption to the pace that his pursuers are setting. This, I'm afraid, is going to be a particularly tactical race. It will be the most tactical of the season. It's the highest fuel consumption. And there is Senna in trouble. Senna blowing a lot of smoke from the back, and that looks like the end of his race as Alboreto goes through to take up fourth place. So Senna, who's finished both the first 2 races with a win and a second, leader of the World Championship at this early stage, looks as if he's not going to score any points here.
Yes, this looks like the end of the San-Marino Grand-Prix for Ayrton Senna, who led so convincingly last year for 56 out of the 60 laps before he ran out of fuel. But as I say that, the smoke clears. Maybe it's something as simple as oil on an exhaust manifold, but from the way he's slowing down, it certainly doesn't look like it, and it looks as though the World Championship leader is going to score a 0 here.
Yes, does it look pretty serious? When you're driving a car around that's smoking a lot, you really start to worry when it stops smoking, because it usually means it's finished all the oil, and then you get the big old mechanical bang. But in fairness, there wasn't that much smoke coming out.
Piquet into the pits. Nigel Mansell into the pits. And I think Mansell's out of the race. I saw his seatbelts come undone there. And Prost is closing up with Rosberg. And now Senna into the pits as I talk to you, and you look at the battle between Rosberg and Prost, with now René Arnoux close, with Danner behind the Ferrari. And Danner, of course, has been lapped. The positions are leading Nelson Piquet. 6 seconds behind, as you look at Ayrton Senna in the pits, is Keke Rosberg. Just behind him, and there he is Alain Prost. So up into 4th place now goes Michele Alboreto. Up into 5th place goes René Arnoux. To 6th position goes the Benetton BMW of Fabi. Ayrton Senna retires, the World Championship leader, retires from the San Marino Grand Prix on lap 13. And this is Nelson Piquet's chance to equal the score between himself and the World Championship leader Ayrton Senna. There is Piquet. There are Rosberg and Prost coming through to complete lap 13 out of the Traguardo. Now the gap between Nelson Piquet that you're watching accelerating away and Keke Rosberg is coming down a little. It's 5.2 seconds. Watch for the 2 McLarens. There they are.
And Prost got right up very close behind Rosberg on the last lap at this point, but I think at the moment he'll probably be quite happy to be where he is and conserve fuel for later. If I was in his situation, rather than trying to clamber all over Rosberg, because he's not going to be able to go noticeably quicker if he's in front on his own, I would hope that he's turned down his boost a bit and is using Rosberg's slipstream to pull him along and save some fuel. He's a pretty cunning chap, is Prosty, which is why he's one of the reasons that's made him the current world champion. And that, I think, would be a crafty move, because you can run a bit less power when you're following another car like that. And he who can turn the boost up at the end of the race is going to be in very good shape indeed.
René Arnoux come into the pits to change his soft compound Pirelli tyres. Quite a few mechanical problems already. Nigel Mansell, Palmer, De Cesaris is out. Don't know what the reason is, but Nannini has retired with an accident. Patrick Tambay is out of the race with engine problems. That's tragic, because it's the last appearance that we know of for the Hart turbocharged engine, with both the Haas Lola cars going on to the new Ford turbo motor at Monaco. Nigel Mansell's problem has been turbocharger, and it looks to me as though the gap is coming down a bit between Piquet and the 2 McLarens. There is Alboreto in 4th position, so it's still Piquet Williams leading, Rosberg McLaren 2nd, Prost McLaren, there are the 2 of them in 3rd position. Michele Alboreto is 4th. Fabi and Berger in the 2 Benetton BMWs on Pirelli tyres, both of them looking very strong indeed. 5th and 6th. Jacques Lafitte is 7th in the Ligier. Johansson is 8th. Riccardo Patrese is 9th. Alan Jones is now into 10th position. Lafitte into the pits, not to change his Pirellis, obviously, because nothing was happening there. Well, very careful eyes on those fuel indicator gauges, which are to the right and slightly down on the 2 McLarens. They have to actually look through the spokes of the steering wheel. And the engine cover up on Jacques Lafitte's car. So the Frenchman's San Marino Grand Prix seems to be virtually over.
And the McLarens are visibly closer now to Nelson Piquet. The gap has come right down. But of course, with a race such as this, times have changed, and remember, it's highly tactical on fuel consumption, and of course we've no way of telling up here just what sort of power any driver is running at any one time. You can't tell externally, and they certainly will be playing with their boosts. It may be that Piquet has decided to come down, save a bit of fuel, and the others are closed up, but I don't think we'll be seeing a lot of heavy dicing and challenging in the first half of the race, certainly, because that, of course, tends to use more fuel. You have to get more aggressive, and I think everybody is going to be trying his best to save up for what may be a bit like become like a horse race and be a bit of a sprint finish to the line towards the end of the race.
Now, here's an interesting fact. Caprice's problem was brakes. There is Elio De Angelis in the pits in the Brabham. And Senna's retirement problem was brakes. So for some reason or another, the two Lotus have both got brake problems.
And in fact, we just heard that Senna's problem was a wheel bearing, so it was in the brake area, but that would explain all the smoke. That would be a universal joint on the outboard joint on the right rear wheel, and of course that's packed in grease, and when that goes and when it comes out, it's all very hot there and it gets on the brakes. So braking might have been his first symptom, but the fact of the matter is it was the wheel bearing that caused it. It was the hot grease from that getting onto the disc, I would imagine.
Well, now watch this. This is lap 17, and you can see for yourself that the two McLarens are visibly gaining on Nelson Piquet. The gap is down to 3.2 seconds. It was 6 seconds. And Keke Rosberg, Alan Jones in the pits in the Haas Lola with the Ford engine. First race, Brian Hart, the bald-headed chap in the background, watching pointers. But now Keke Rosberg, who's thoroughly familiar now with the McLaren. It's a very different car to drive from the Williams that he drove last year and the previous 3 years with such success. And Keke Rosberg was telling me yesterday he's really got to grips with the McLaren, feels thoroughly at home with it, and my goodness, it's showing. He was fastest in the warm-up this morning. The gap, which was 6 seconds, is now down to just over 3 on lap 17 out of 60, and both Rosberg and Prost are gaining. There is Alboreto in 4th place. Piquet, of course, still leads. In 5th position and 6th, it's Fabi and Berger, and they should be appearing towards the Rivazza any moment now. Well, it's Jacques Lafitte back in the race, and we should be looking at the leader because it's getting very close indeed. There are the two Benettons of Fabi and Berger. Christian Danner, who's been into the pits and rejoined the race, and now we're back at the front, and you see Keke Rosberg there with the plastic bag flying away from the McLaren. There goes Piquet. He's got Ginzani between himself and Rosberg, followed by Prost, followed by this man in the 186 Ferrari, Michele Alboreto, second in the World Championship last year.
Yes, another bit of encouragement for Alboreto. He's had a pretty miserable time since about halfway through last season. It's pretty difficult. That's Lafitte coming into the pits, and that's the end of his day's work. By the way, he's getting out and walking straight off. But Alboreto, one has to sympathise with a lot, being an Italian driving for Ferrari. Ferrari lost form, and naturally he got the blame for that, although it certainly wasn't his fault. The car was not good. Ginzani just getting in the way a little bit there, but Prost is safely through. And it's been miserable for him until now. This is really the best race they've had for some time, and very encouraging here on his home ground. And of course, the other thing that's such a nice contrast to see is that people do like coming to watch motor races after all, because in Spain we really wondered, although in fairness, Jerez is not a big population centre where we had the Grand-Pri, and the prices were for tickets and seats were very high, certainly for an ordinary wage-earning person to pay. They were sort of well over a week's wages, which is pretty heavy. And Rosberg there shows us fastest lap, so the tempo is hotting up a little bit. And but after that very disappointing crowd in Spain, we've got a huge crowd here.
And the Minardi is in the way of Nelson Piquet. That's giving Rosberg and Prost the opportunity to close up, and still Andrea De Cesaris in the Minardi is in the way of Nelson Piquet and not moving over. Piquet goes through, and now Rosberg and Prost have got to go for him.
Yeah, so that was a pretty disgraceful bit of driving for one so as experienced as De Cesaris. He really had no business to be holding up the leaders like that. He's uncompetitive in that car, which of course is more the car's fault than his, but the least he can do is look in his mirrors and show the courtesy that a man of his experience ought to show to the people who are involved in a serious part of the motor race.
Yeah, De Cesaris is obviously in trouble. The car is smoking, and now Rosberg and Prost go through, and now Keke Rosberg has got Philippe Streff in the 014 Tyrrell in front of him. Streff crashed the Tyrrell in practice, and it had to be substantially rebuilt, and it's getting very close indeed. Now, this is lap 19. 6 Piquet leads, 2 Rosberg second, 1 Prost is third, and the gap is now down to 1.87 seconds. Piquet pulling away from Streff as he goes up towards the Tamburello. This is 6th gear, 185 miles an hour and building. 195 miles an hour as they go into the Rettifilio. 200 miles an hour down to the 100-meter board. They're doing 200 miles an hour, 100 meters before they change from 6th to 2nd gear for the Tosa bends. Then up towards the Piratella, which is where they are now. Piquet leading, Prost in 3rd position, Rosberg right in front of him. Now they drop down towards the Acqua Minerale, which is the right, which is where Nelson Piquet is now. And you just saw Rosberg's McLaren coming into the picture. Now they climb to the Variante Alta, 180 miles an hour in 5th gear. Twin stabs of flame as Nelson Piquet shifts a gear. He's coming up to Martin Brundle. Meantime, Gerhard Berger has passed Theo Fabi into 5th position. The order is Piquet, who's still got to take Martin Brundle, Rosberg, Prost, Alboreto 4th, Berger 5th, Fabi 6th, Johansson 7th. Patrese in the Brabham is in 8th position. Arnoux, who's been in for tires, is 9th. Boutsen is 10th. Sura is 11th. De Angelis is 12th. And they're coming through to complete lap 20 out of 60.
Soviel ich weiß, ist Martin Brundle mit dem neuen Auto unterwegs, mit dem 015 Tyrrell. Willi, wo der Tyrrell selbst sagt, nur das Lenkrad ist noch identisch mit dem alten Auto. Ist das richtig, ja?
Ich habe das nicht verstanden.
Ist der Tyrrell das neue Auto von Martin Brundle, der 015, oder ist es noch das alte Modell?
Ja, ich kann es im Augenblick nicht sagen, ich werde es feststellen, aber vielleicht sollten wir jetzt mal mit Michael Kranefuß sprechen, denn wir hatten ja eben die Frage gestellt, welche Erwartungen hat Ford mit dem neuen Turbomotor? Und im Augenblick ist Patrick Tambay, haben wir ja zuletzt in der Box gesehen, ich kann im Augenblick nicht sagen, ist Tambay noch drin oder ist Tambay jetzt weg? Michael Kranefuß also jetzt hier bei uns in der Kabine. Michael, ihr habt also, wie ich gerade sagte, eigentlich nicht erwartet, dass ihr vorne mitfahren könnt, sondern ihr wolltet erst mal versuchen, wie es läuft.
Tambay ist mit dem Brian Hart Motor vor ein paar Runden ausgefallen mit einem Motorschaden. Alan Jones hat das Schaltgestänge gebrochen und das hat den Kühler aufgeschlagen. Und die wechseln den Kühler und Schaltgestänge und dann gehen wir wieder raus und machen so viel Erfahrung. Wir waren angenehm überrascht, dass wir nahezu die gleichen Zeiten fahren wie die Spitze. Ja, das hat besser geklappt, als wir uns das vorgestellt haben.
Und beispielsweise wie bei Brabham, hier sehen wir Elio De Angelis mit der Startnummer 8 in ganz langer Fahrt in Richtung Boxengasse fahren. Ihr werdet also, nachdem Kühler und Gestänge repariert sind, wieder ins Rennen gehen, um Erfahrung zu sammeln. Und ihr könnt eigentlich, meine ich, nach dem Ergebnis von heute doch recht zufrieden sein, beziehungsweise dem Ergebnis der beiden Trainingstage.
Wir haben zu diesem Zeitpunkt natürlich keine Qualifikationsleistungen in unserem Motor. Das erklärt den relativ schlechten Trainingsplatz von 21. Wir haben uns während des Wochenendes auf das Rennen konzentriert und wie man gesehen hat, können wir zumindest vorne mitfahren.
Michael, es gibt in diesem Feld der Formel-1-Fahrer nur 2 Firmen, die mit einem eigenen Triebwerk fahren, nämlich Ferrari und Tarkowski. Alle anderen haben Kaufmotoren. Honda, BMW, Osella, Motori Moderni und jetzt auch Ford. Angenommen, ihr seid nun sehr erfolgreich, der Motor schlägt so ein, wie ihr euch das natürlich erhofft, wird der neue Ford Turbomotor ausschließlich ein Lola-Motor sein oder wollt ihr eben, so wie Renault und BMW, die Motoren auch anderen Teams zur Verfügung stellen?
Das ist generell unsere Intention, den Motor verfügbar zu machen. Aber wir brauchen erstmal einige Erfahrung, um festzustellen, wie viel Arbeit wir haben, um diesen Motor auf entsprechende Leistung zu bringen.
Im Studio sitzt der Hubert Hane und ihr beide kennt euch auch schon sehr lange. Und Hubert, vielleicht hast du eine Frage an den Mike.
Ja, eigentlich habe ich keine Frage, aber man sollte vielleicht betonen, dass der Ford V6-Motor der modernste unter den V6-Triebwerken ist, weil er eine 120-Grad-Spreizung hat, also sehr flach baut und damit dem Auto eine sehr tiefe Schwerpunktlage gibt.
Das ist hier nicht angekommen.
Es tut mir leid, aber ich hoffe, die Zuschauer haben es gehört. Ich habe gesagt, dass der V6-Motor von Ford eine 120-Grad-Spreizung hat, also sehr flach baut. Genauso flach wie der querliegende BMW-Motor und dann mit dem Auto eine sehr tiefe Schwerpunktlage gibt.
Ja, wir haben mit Sicherheit den kleinsten Motor im Formel-1-Geschäft und wir haben das natürlich mit Absicht so designt, dass wir eine möglichst günstige Anstrengung des Heckflügels bekommen und das augenblickliche Auto ist sogar noch eine Nummer zu groß. Die neuen Autos werden mit Sicherheit kleiner werden.
So, ich glaube, ich muss nicht mehr lange erklären, was in den Boxen los war. Der Ferrari und auch der Bennett waren an der Box zum Reifenwechsel. Michael Granefuß ist auf dem Weg zurück nach Amerika und Dankeschön fürs Kommen bis nach Monte Carlo. Tschüss, nein. So, das war also der Chef von das Ganze, wie man so schön sagt, von Ford Motorsport weltweit, Michael Granefuß, der übrigens aus Münster stammt, lange Zeit die Ford Sportgeschicke in Köln geleitet hat, dann nach Amerika, nach Detroit gerufen wurde, um weltweit den Motorsport für sein Unternehmen anzukurbeln. Und die Formel 1 ist natürlich auch für Granefuß das große Ziel, obwohl man in Amerika ja ganz anders denkt, denn da spielen andere Dinge eine Rolle. Und der Abstand zwischen Nelson Piquet und Keke Rosberg wird immer knapper, wie man deutlich sehen kann. Und im Vordergrund sehen wir Jonathan Palmer, Startnummer 14, der eine Runde zurückliegt, 2 Runden zurückliegt durch den Boxenstopp, das heißt durch das Losstarten von der Box. Und wenn jetzt Nelson Piquet an Jonathan Palmer vorbei ist, dann ist das Auto 3 Runden zurück. Ist vorbei, sind beide vorbei, also schnellste Runde wurde jetzt gerade gefahren von Keke Rosberg mit 1,31. 1,31,15.
Ja, vielleicht noch ganz kurz eine letzte Frage zum aktuellen Renngeschehen, weil dann machen wir eine kleine Pause.
Ja, aber ich sehe gerade, dass Piquet noch nicht an Palmer vorbei.
Jetzt geht er vorbei.
Gerade geht er vorbei. Und der Wagen von Tarkowski läuft eigentlich sehr gut. Man muss hier einfach sagen, bevor wir die nächste Frage beantworten, dass es ja ein sehr, sehr junges Team ist. Und dass das, was eben beim Start passiert ist, schon ganz anderen großen Teams passiert ist. Denn in der Aufwärmrunde lief alles optimal. Beim Training gestern war man eigentlich auch recht zufrieden. Und ohne polemisch sein zu wollen, muss man sagen, dass das Zackspeed-Team im Aufwind ist, dass man bei Zackspeed weiß, dass es vorangeht. Und auch die Profis, die alten Profis in der Formel 1 hier, die alten Teams wie Lotus und selbst Bernie Ecclestone haben inzwischen großen Respekt vor diesem Team aus der Eifel bekommen. Nun können wir nur hoffen, dass von Rennen zu Rennen auch die Ergebnisse besser werden. Ich würde meinen, sollte es Tarkowski gelingen, diesmal die Distanz zu fahren, die 60 Runden durchzustehen, dann wäre das ein sehr, sehr großer Erfolg.
Gut, an dieser Stelle vielleicht ganz kurz den letzten Anrufer. Bitte schön, Ihre Frage.
Hallo?
Hallo, Ihre Frage bitte.
Guten Tag, hier ist Marlene aus Echternach. Meine Frage ist, warum gibt es dieses Jahr keine Grand-Prix im Zandvoort, im Holland?
Da kann ich, Hubert, du weißt Bescheid?
Ja, natürlich. Ich meine, in Imola, sagten Sie Zandvoort und Nürburgring, oder was sagten Sie gerade?
Zandvoort.
Zandvoort, ja. Zandvoort entspricht nicht mehr den Sicherheitsvorschriften, die gefordert werden von der FOCA. Die Strecke muss ganz umgebaut werden. Vorher gab es auch finanzielle Probleme, aber der Kurs ist inzwischen antiquiert und der muss jetzt korrigiert werden, in den neuesten Vorstellungen der FOCA korrigiert werden.
Und es gibt noch einen weiteren Grund dazu. Zandvoort, direkt an den Dünen gelegen, hat das große Problem, dass die Strecke sehr oft von feinem Flugsand übersät ist und das Rennenfahren doch dann eben unkontrollierbar gefährlich wird. Reifenwechsel übrigens jetzt auch für Terry Woodson gefährlich wird und dass der Kurs sehr, sehr nah an der Stadt Zandvoort ist, einem Badeort an der Küste, und dass die Einwohner dort große Probleme machen, dass man beispielsweise am Sonntag vor 12 Uhr überhaupt keinen Motor starten darf. Und das ist natürlich für die Formel 1 unmöglich, die ja nach dem internationalen Reglement am Sonntag ihren letzten Test mit vollen Tanks immer um 10:30 bis 11 fahren kann. Das wäre also Zandvoort nicht gegeben. Und es ist den Teams zugesichert, dass eine bestimmte Zeit zwischen dem Warm-up und dem Rennstart gegeben ist, um eventuelle letzte Korrekturen am Fahrzeug vornehmen zu können.
Also eine ganz deutliche Erklärung für das Nein zu Zandvoort. Vielen Dank für den Anruf und die Frage.
Dank, Wiedersehen.
Wiederhören.
Ja, und der Keke Rosberg ist dem Nelson Piquet ganz, ganz dicht auf den Fersen. Und der Keke Rosberg hat mir kurz vor dem Start noch Folgendes erzählt. Er sagte, die Strecke ist natürlich die Strecke, wo wir alle die Angst vor haben, wir kein Benzin mehr haben. Aber was die meisten falsch erzählen ist, dass es dadurch käme, weil es ein so schneller Kurs ist. Das stimmt nur bedingt. Es liegt daran, weil diese Strecke eine Menge Kurven hat, wo man auf den zweiten Gang schalten muss. Exakt 5 Kurven. Und sagt er, Sie stellen sich vor, Sie fahren mit Ihrem Auto auf der Autobahn, dann verbrauchen Sie wesentlich weniger Benzin bei konstanter Geschwindigkeit, als wenn Sie ständig abbremsen müssen, wieder beschleunigen müssen, abbremsen müssen, beschleunigen. Und wir beschleunigen ja nun ein bisschen anders wie Sie mit Ihren Autos auf der Straße. Das ist ganz klar, wenn man ständig runter auf den zweiten Gang muss und immer wieder anfahren muss, verbraucht man mehr Benzin. Und das ist bei dieser Strecke in Imola schlicht und einfach so. Und dann kommen noch die Bremsen und die Reifen dazu. Michele Alboreto bekam, sehen wir hier an die Box rollen, bekam aber kurz vorher, Sie haben es gesehen, das Signal, dass er an die Box kommen soll, um sich neue Reifen zu holen. Die Prognose der Reifenhersteller hier scheint mir nicht ganz aufzugehen, die gesagt haben, zweimal zum Reifenwechsel. Und Ferrari hat hier einen Rekord inzwischen gebrochen, nämlich das schnellste Auto auf der Geraden zu sein mit 323,25 Kilometern und mit dem schnellsten Boxenstopp von 8,44 Sekunden. Aber weiter zu Keke Rosberg. Dann sind es die Bremsen, denn wir beschleunigen fast nach jedem zweiten Gangknick hoch wieder bis auf den 6. Gang ausgenommen. Bei 2 Kurven, da kommen wir nur auf den 5. Gang, in Anführungsstrichen nur auf den 5. Gang und dann wieder runterbremsen. Und dieses Runterbremsen heißt natürlich auch, dass die Bremsen sehr, sehr stark beansprucht werden. Jetzt runter auf den 2. Gang, hoch auf den 3. nach dem Knick und wieder voll beschleunigen. Die Strecke hier hat einen schlechten Grip, der Belag ist sehr glatt, die Räder drehen also durch und das kostet logischerweise auch Gummi. Und hier zeigt eigentlich der Keke Rosberg, welch enormer Kämpfer er eigentlich ist, wie dicht er mithalten kann mit Nelson Piquet, denn man sagt ja, dass der Honda-Motor derzeit das stärkste Triebwerk nach BMW wäre, aber BMW hat ja nun wesentlich andere Probleme, zumindest bei Brabham. Und wir werden auch nachher noch mit den BMW-Leuten sprechen, was passiert ist. Zum Beispiel kann ich Ihnen jetzt schon sagen, dass Elio De Angelis, Start Nummer 8, mit Maschinenschaden ausgeschieden ist. Und jetzt wartet man auf Nelson Piquet, während hier vorne bei Start und Ziel eben Marc Surer vorbeikam, sein Motor hochging. Das bedeutet aber aus für den Schweizer. Natürlich sehr schade, denn ein kleines bisschen besser lief es ja an diesem Wochenende bei Eros. Und bei Eros hat man etwas ganz Komisches gemacht. Das ist übrigens jetzt De Cesaris, Start Nummer 23, der zweite Motori Moderni, der jetzt nicht mehr im Rennen ist.
Willi,
ja?
Ganz kurz aus Luxemburg. Aus technischen Gründen melden wir uns für 5 Minuten ab. Wir lassen dich 5 Minuten alleine, okay?
Das ist denn die Möglichkeit.
Es ist soweit. Jetzt musst du da alleine durch, okay?
Das machen wir glatt. Wir werden also versuchen, dass Wolfgang Peter Flor zu uns hochkommt, der uns dann erzählen kann, was nun eigentlich los ist. Denn hier ist ja das Problem, dass die BMW Turbomotoren bei Berger zum Beispiel in den Bennett und auch bei Fabi tadellos laufen, aber im Werksauto, im Brabham nicht. Und jetzt greift Keke Rosberg an. Keke Rosberg im Windschatten von Nelson Piquet. Ja, ein wahnsinnig schnelles Rennen. Und da könnte ich mir vorstellen, dass es vielleicht so passieren kann wie im letzten Jahr, als an dieser Stelle genau der in Führung liegende Ayrton Senna ohne Sprit stehen blieb. Und dass man allen Trost aus dem Rennen nahm, weil er, ich glaube es waren damals 1 oder 2 Kilo, zu leicht war. Denn die Fahrzeuge müssen ja ein Mindestgewicht von 540 Kilogramm haben. Und das war dann bei der McLaren von Prost nicht mehr, er wurde disqualifiziert. Aber lassen Sie mich schnell noch die Geschichte zu Eros erzählen. Da man mit dem alten Auto überhaupt keinen Erfolg hatte, hat man das Auto hier zurückgeschraubt auf das 85er Modell. Das heißt andere Flügel, andere Federn. Und siehe da, plötzlich ging es wieder besser. Und die BMW Turbomotoren, die von dem Schweizer Heidi Mader präpariert werden, zeigen, dass auch in ihnen genügend Kraft steht, um im Mittelfeld mitfahren zu können. Allerdings Pech jetzt für Marc Surer, dass er sein Auto abstellen musste und auch Philipp Streif mit
in the lead.
Now, he goes to the variant of Basser, which is a right-left, and then he should peel off for the pit lane, which is approaching him now, and yes, Piquet on lap 29, the end of, goes into the pits. Rosberg takes the lead, Prost takes second place, and what is Piquet's time going to be? Mansell had his tyres changed in 8.8 seconds in Spain, and that was a fantastic speed. The very experienced Nelson Piquet, 111 Grand Prix behind him, just sits coolly in the car. The tyres are changed, the hammers are away, and it's 13.5 seconds. And Prost has taken the lead, has he? No, Rosberg is still there, but Prost is challenging. Well, there's no team orders between the two McLaren drivers, and they will now know that now is their chance to make a break. Nelson Piquet won't be as slow getting up to racing speed as he might have been in the past, because instead of starting off on cold tyres, he's starting off on good hot tyres, thanks to the electric blankets which have been surrounding them while they were in the pits waiting for him to come in. But now on lap 30, it's Rosberg leading, Prost second. Alboreto will almost certainly go up to third, but Piquet may hold the position. I'll give you them at the end of this lap.
Yes, I don't think Piquet will be very pleased with that pit stop. It wasn't the best pit stop by the Williams mechanics, but I thought above all, once the car was down on the ground and things were ready to go, I thought Piquet was a little bit slow getting it moving and getting away. And yes, and so Prost has gone in. Prost goes into the pits for his stop, and he has, I personally think, nicked a bit of a tactical advantage by coming in first before Rosberg. I don't know what the McLaren plans were, but let's have a look at this, because he should be able to pull something on Nelson Piquet here. And that's very quick indeed, and Prost got away much quicker. You see that as soon as the car was off the jack, he was moving, and that was a tremendous pit stop by the McLaren team, and that was 4 seconds quicker than Nelson Piquet's, so that's a substantial difference. And Prost, I suspect that once they've all stopped, may well emerge the leader, because McLaren's may do Rosberg as quickly, but I can't see them doing it much quicker than that. So, and Prost will be out warming the tyres up. So Keke Rosberg now alone in the lead, but remember, he's alone because he's the only one of the front runners who has yet to change his tyres. I think it's likely that he'll be in on this lap.
That's Andrea De Cesaris being interviewed by the Italian commentator, and although Keke Rosberg now leads the San-Marino Grand Prix on lap 31, one has to say that the favourite becomes Alain Prost, who won in 1984, won in 1985 last year, only to have the victory taken away from him when his car was found to be 2 kilograms underweight when he ran out of fuel on the last lap. But Prost's time of just over 9 seconds for that pit stop was tremendously fast, and it gained him some 4 seconds on Nelson Piquet. Rosberg leads at the end of the lap, and now we just wait for the second and third men to go through, and at the end of the lap, with Stefan Johansson going through, we're still waiting. Rosberg is well on his way now, as you can see, round the circuit.
Well, there is Rosberg. Now, he didn't come in that time, although I'm sure he would have wanted to come in. I expect he's under orders to wait for his pit crew to give him an all-clear, i.e. that they've dealt with Prost and got him out of the way. Now, obviously, he's long gone, but Rosberg has no way of knowing that until he passes the pits. So there's got to be a 2-lap gap, because disasters happen if, for instance, they're having some trouble with Prost, and they're still working on Prost's car, and Rosberg arrives, and then a great panic ensues, and so a crew will normally insist that the driver waits till he's given the all-clear to come in. I'm sure we'll see Rosberg in as he completes this lap. And there is Prost, who's running in second place at the moment, some 17 seconds behind Rosberg on the road, which is not a lot. It's be a pretty quick pit stop to be able to get tyres changed and decelerate and accelerate again and do the whole lot in 17 seconds.
Lap 32, just over half distance. Rosberg leads. Prost is in second place, and you're looking at the race leader now. Nelson Piquet is in third place, 26 seconds behind Prost, behind Rosberg.
Alboreto is 4th, Berger is 5th, Arnoux is 6th. Petresi has moved up to 7th place and is going extremely well for the first time this year in the Brabham, and he's ahead of Theo Fabi. Johansson is in 9th place, Boutsen is 10th, Sura 11th, Martin Brundle is in 12th position, and Jonathan Palmer is 15th, albeit 3 laps behind. You look at Keke Rosberg as he climbs up.
And Nelson Piquet, now that both Prost and Piquet are up to racing speed, and another faster start for Alain Prost, that of course reflects that he's got fresh tyres on, but now that both he and Piquet are up to racing speed, Piquet is just under 4 seconds behind Prost, and that very much reflects the 4 seconds difference in the work of their pit crews. And also, as I say, not all the Williams team's fault. I did think that Nelson was a little bit slow in dropping the clutch and getting the car moving once the stop had been, once the mechanics had finished their work. Whereas Prost, you saw, as the car hit the deck off the jacks, he was dropping the clutch and he's fairly scorched away. So there is Nelson. Can you see how far the gap shouldn't be much bigger than a visual gap to Alain Prost? So we've got a definite battle for the lead. And here is Keke Rosberg. So, of the 3 leaders, this is the last one to come in, and they'll have to do a mighty good stop to get him out with in contention with Prost and Piquet. Remember, in order to be really in contention, he's got to get out ahead of them, because it'll take him a lap, and that's a light... Oh, they got one wheel stuck, and they're spinning. And Rosberg has not got his foot on the brake, and that was Keke Rosberg who caused that. That was very, very amateur stuff by Keke Rosberg. You could see the rear wheels spinning then, and that was because he forgot to put his foot on the brake, which is rule number 1, and a very easy one to forget, but not for a man of Rosberg's experience, and that could well have cost him the race. That was a serious, serious mistake by Keke Rosberg, and I think the team will be very unhappy with him. He's made a few mistakes of a tactical error since he's been with McLaren.
Well, you lost pictures momentarily, but let me tell you that Keke Rosberg has been in for tyres, muffed his pit stop, took nearly 15 seconds compared with Piquet's 13.5 and Alain Prost's 9.5. And it confirms my view that Alain Prost is now the hot favourite to win the 1986 San Marino Grand Prix. He's on lap 34. This most experienced, most wins of current Grand Prix drivers, with 21 victories under his belt already, and desperately wanting points for the World Championship, not having scored any in Brazil, not having scored any in Spain, and he is, after all, the world champion. Correction, my apologies, he was, of course, 3rd in Spain. Alain Prost crosses the line. Well down in the World Championship because his 4 points made him 4th equal. So, as you watch the race leader, Alain Prost, who's now got a comfortable cushion between himself and his teammate Keke Rosberg, this is lap 35.
And there you see the gap, that's Rosberg going through, so it wasn't too disastrous, and there is Piquet. So the 3 leaders are covered by some 10 seconds, with Rosberg now going to have to really fight to make amends for that terrible mistake he made in the pits. He, as I said before, he did not have his foot on the brake, which gets the back wheels starting to spin because the clutch drags, even though you've got your foot on the clutch, and the mechanics obviously can't work on the car with the back wheels going round like that. And it's rule number 1 when the car's on the jack that the driver must keep his foot on the brake. He's got to use all 3 pedals, but that is not a problem, because you've still got to blip the throttle to keep the engine running, because if you don't do that, they just stop. They don't idle very cleverly, these motors. But so it's a bit of a job to do, but a driver of Keke's experience, that was real beginner's stuff that he did there. And the McLaren team will have every right to be very, very cross with him. However, if they can still get a 1-2 out of it, and Prost, I'm sure, will be very grateful. So up the caption on the left gives us the race order, the 2 McLarens, numbers 1 and 2 in numerical order. Prost Rosberg. Third place, Nelson Piquet, not far behind Rosberg, but I think Piquet seems to be in a little bit of trouble. He's falling back fast from Alain Prost. He was 2 laps after Prost had stopped. Piquet was 3 seconds behind Prost, and now only about 3 or 4 laps later, he's some 14 seconds behind Prost. So Piquet, I feel, is in trouble. I also should point out that Prost is going particularly quickly. We've got a new fastest lap for Prost. He's broken the 130 barrier, and Prost is undoubtedly flying, and he's stretching away. He's 129.6. That's nearly a second quicker than anything earlier in the race, and he's really got the bit between his teeth. And I do think that he played a very canny first half of the race, because by sitting behind the others, allowing himself to be towed round by Rosberg, he has been able to turn the boost down. He would have been able to run a lower boost than Rosberg, and now I wouldn't be at all surprised if he's got the whip turned up higher than anybody else. And Piquet may be conserving fuel after running very hard in the first half of the race, or he may be in some sort of bother. I can't imagine what it could be other than on an economy run, because maybe he used a little bit more than he should have done in the first half. He'll know from his gauge what he's got to do and how much he's got, but he's certainly falling back from leader Alain Prost. He is now over 17 seconds behind Prost, and that's really quite dramatically and quickly.
So the leader on lap 37 is Alain Prost, leading Keke Rosberg now by nearly 10 seconds. Nelson Piquet is some 7 seconds behind Rosberg, and therefore 17 seconds behind Prost. In 4th position, it is Michele Alboreto in the Ferrari. 5th is René Arnoux. 6th is Riccardo Patrese. 7th is Gerhard Berger. 8th is his teammate in the Benetton BMW, Theo Fabi. 9th is Stefan Johansson, and of course Prost has lapped everybody up to Johansson. So Boutsen in 10th place has been lapped. So of course has Sura, who is in 11th position, and you see now the McLaren right on the tail of Stefan Johansson's Ferrari. So race leader Alain Prost is about to lap the 9th place man, the Swedish driver Stefan Johansson. We think of as Steve Johnson and an adopted British driver. And in 11th position is Sura. Leading British driver Martin Brundle. Nigel Mansell out of the race a long time ago, of course. And Jonathan Palmer, 3 laps adrift, is in 15th position. Alan Jones long since disappeared. Johnny Dumfries, of course, out of the race. Alain Prost takes Stefan Johansson. Martin Brundle in 12th position now. And out of the race has gone Nannini. As you look at the 2 Benetton BMWs, Torbay is out, Mansell is out, Dumfries is out, Senna is out, Lafitte is out. There is Dana retiring. De Angelis is out, Rotengata is out, and De Cesaris is out. And you're looking at the battle for 7th between Gerhard Berger and Theo Fabi in the very distinctively painted Benetton BMWs. And Fabi has got it, because in the white helmet as opposed to the blue helmet of Berger is Theo Fabi, and Austrian Gerhard Berger is certainly not giving up. And I see in the background there is Prost. So Prost is right up to 8th position as the tall German Christian Dana, the European Formula 3000 champion, having retired his Osella, walks in. And now the 2 Benetton BMWs are coming through to complete lap 38, whereas Prost is coming through to complete lap 39. Out of the Traguardo, the left, now the right. Now it'll be interesting to see how Alain Prost copes with the Benetton BMWs. And without any problem at all seems to be the answer. Past Berger, now past Fabi. So now Prost has lapped everybody up to Riccardo Patrese, who to everybody's vast surprise after the way the Brabham BMWs went in practice, is now in 6th position. Alan Jones, by the way, and I know we have a lot of viewers to Wide World of Sports in Australia, has been into the pits for a long, long time, but has rejoined the race in the new Ford powered Haas Lola. There goes Prost. Here are 7, Theo Farley, 8, Gerhard Berger, and 9, Stefan Johansson. So Stefan is starting a charge in the Ferrari. His teammate Michele Alboreto is still in 4th place. The rain which momentarily threatened earlier on, that's Rosberg that you just saw climbing up. And the rain which earlier threatened has not happily materialised. The circuit is dry and it looks like remaining so as Prost comes through to complete another lap.
Yes, I think Prost did a bit of a sprint right after his pit stop, probably turned his boost up a bit just to get clear of his pursuers, because I think I get the impression now that he's backed off a little bit. And I just had a look out of the commentary box, out of the door, had the advantage of looking up at the sky, which Murray can't see from his position. And actually, although it's still bright and dry, it looks as if it could rain. The clouds are quite low and they look a little bit threatening. I don't think we're going to get a storm, but I think we might get some drizzle later on. The weather forecast was confidently predicting it with a 90% chance of rain, they described it. And it's a pretty high percentage, and we haven't had any yet today, apart from a very light dusting of it about half an hour before, or an hour before the race started. So we had that bright sunny patch at the start, but the clouds are back again and look sort of vaguely threatening. But as I say, I think Prost has eased up, although he's now some 28 seconds ahead of Piquet. Rosberg is in the middle of the sandwich, 9 seconds behind Prost.
Well, let's take a breath time now and look at this, because there's Riccardo Patrese charging in the low-line Brabham BMW and starting to catch René Arnoux, who is in 5th position. Race order on this, the 40th lap. Prost leading, Rosberg 2nd, Piquet 3rd, Alboreto 4th. And here is the battle for 5th position between, in the blue Ligier, driven by the white-helmeted René Arnoux, the Frenchman, Riccardo Patrese, the Italian, in the Brabham BMW. Well, you saw, here is Arnoux, and that is Alboreto, who is in 4th position. Now, the gap between Patrese, who is 6th, and Prost, the race leader, is 1 minute 10 seconds, and they're currently lapping at around 1 minute 30 seconds. So that'll give you an indication of how spread out they are. That's a good view of the 186 turbocharged V6 Ferrari. A bit of a disappointment for the Commendatore and all of Italy, who had hoped to see it do much better here than it has done. Michele Alboreto hanging on in 4th position, crossing the line to complete his 40th lap. But the two Benetton cars are at it hammer and tongs. The very quiet, reserved Theo Farley and the tall, lanky Gerhard Berger, who is in, what, only his 3rd season of Grand-Prix racing. And he goes through. He just slices past Farley. It looks as though he's in trouble.
Yeah, it looks to me as if Farley missed the gear then, because the way things were. Well, maybe worse than that, because he is dropping back a fair bit. The Venezuelans have been very smart driving in formation for the whole race hitherto, or once the things settle down, and Farley looks to have dropped right back, so maybe he's in more serious trouble than I thought.
Yes, and that puts Gerhard Berger up into 7th place. As the McLaren exits the right-hander, completes another lap. 1 minute 29.46. Now that compares with the lap record of 1 minute 30.9 put by Michele Alboreto last year, some 124 miles an hour, or 199 kilometers an hour if you prefer it that way. And we have a new lap record then for Alain Prost, who's well and truly on his way. Into the pits now comes Theo Farley. You saw him slow and be passed by Gerhard Berger, and that's clearly not a tyre problem that he's in for. We are now on lap 42. Alain Prost is leading Keke Rosberg by some 11 seconds. In 3rd position, Nelson Piquet, who is 31 seconds behind the leader and dropping back and being reeled in by Michele Alboreto, who is 6 seconds behind Piquet in 4th position. Then 5th and 6th are Arnoux and Patrese.
And Prost is now really dominating this race, and he really won it with what I'm sure was very clever tactics in the first half by taking it easy, keeping his boost as low as he could while still running with the leaders, not rushing, not panicking, and he's completely out-fumbled the others tactically, as one would expect. This is very much a thinking man's race, and Prost is very much the thinking man of the McLaren team compared to Rosberg, who really has made his own problems. I think he went pretty hard, a lot harder in the first half of the race than Prost, and never got rid of Prost, but right behind him. And then, of course, he made that dreadful beginner's mistake whilst in the pits, which cost him another 5 or 6 seconds, and he's paid the price. But Prost is showing real world champion form.
I was at a dinner fairly recently with Alain Prost, and to my horror, the woman next to him turned to him and said, "Tell me, what do you think about while you're driving your little car round in the races?" And Alain is too much of a gentleman to have given her the withering reply that it deserved. But the answer is that he not only thinks of line and gears, and that's Ginzani in the pits, but also he thinks about tactics. And as James has just said, he has driven and is driving an absolutely superb tactical race on his way now to his 3rd successive victory in this race. Last year's disallowed, of course, because of that fuel consumption problem. Prost is on lap 43 as you watch the 4th place man, Michele Alboreto, now right with the 3rd position man, Nelson Piquet, in the remaining Williams, with Nigel Mansell long out of the race. And when these two cars go past the start and finish point that we are at in front of the massed grandstand full of Ferrari fans, there's going to be a colossal roar of excitement when they see how close their local hero Michele Alboreto is to the double world champion Nelson Piquet. You may even hear it. Well, I heard it, and I'm just across the road, and I presume you may well have. But you didn't. Prost leading, Rosberg 2nd, Dan has gone out with electrical trouble, and Theo Fabi had a loss of boost pressure from the BMW engine in the Benetton.
Yes, there you can hear the crowd roaring away. In the background is a huge bank, absolutely covered with people at that point of the circuit, with popular spots to go, and they just love to see the Ferrari circulating. And this is now becoming the battle of the race, the battle for 3rd place, with Alboreto challenging, and that was Philip Streff in the Tyrrell. Not quite sure what he was doing. It seems a strange place to park, but maybe he'd had a spin and gone off. And no, I think he was pulling up. Apparently his car was smoking a bit. And so that looks like the end of his race. No oil. But Alboreto now challenging Piquet, and I'm not quite sure what Piquet's, if he's in any mechanical trouble with his car. I think because it would surprise me in all honesty that he would be so much quicker in the first half of the race than the second, and it really seems as if he went off too fast. If he's in no mechanical problem, the only reason for him going slowly can be that he's overcooked his use of fuel in the first half of the race, i.e. got himself conned by the McLarens into going quicker than he wanted to, and is now really struggling and coming under the hammer from Alboreto, who's charging along behind and is very shortly going to be challenging him. Piquet's race with Prost is well and truly over. He's some 40 seconds behind race leader Prost. Rosberg is roughly in the middle of the sandwich, some 17 seconds behind Prost, some 22 seconds ahead of Nelson Piquet.
Well, the McLaren people said to me before this race began, my goodness, we want to win. Looks as though they're not only going to get a win, but another first, second that we've seen a few of in the past. and Keke Rosberg in the World Championship points in a McLaren. Piquet third, Alboreto fourth and getting closer. Fifth, Arnoux, who is now some 40 seconds behind Alboreto. Sixth, Patrese, who is 1 second behind Arnoux and gaining. Seventh, Johansson has been lapped. Eighth, Berger. Ninth, Boutsen. 10th, Sura. 11th, Martin Brundle. 12th was Philippe Streff, but he's just retired as Piquet comes through to complete another lap. But he's about the same distance ahead of Alboreto at the end of this, the 45th lap out of 60, as he was at the previous one. There's the Ferrari signal going out to Michele Alboreto. Not that he'll need telling, he can see Nelson Piquet in front of him. So, they are all now on their second set of tyres, of course. Prost and Rosberg have been in. Piquet has been in. Rosberg a disastrous stop. Prost a superb one. Piquet not a good one. Alboreto a magnificent one. And don't think this race is losing interest, because remember that last year on lap 56, Senna retired out of fuel. The next lap, the new race leader, Stefan Johansson, in his first drive for Ferrari, retired out of fuel. Then we saw Boutsen pushing across the line in his Arrows, subsequently to finish second, although he was out of fuel. Prost won, but was disqualified because of lack of fuel. This is a long race, 190 miles, and there is Jonathan Palmer in the Zach Speed, just leaving the pits.
And we can tell just by looking at Nelson Piquet's car that it's a pretty humid day. There you see the little vortices of water vapor coming off the rear wing. It's very much like if you go and watch an aircraft landing on a damp day, you'll see vortices coming off the wings of an aircraft, and that is exactly the same effect you're getting. Little plumes of visible water vapor coming off the back corner of the rear wing, and that indicates that the air is heavy. There you see it. That's a clear view of those
Lap 47, and Nelson Piquet is actually easing away from Alboreto a little, or was, as he comes up to Ghinzani again. He'd increased his gap to 2.15 seconds. Prost still leading, 21 seconds ahead of Rosberg, who is 17 seconds ahead of Piquet, who is 2 seconds ahead of Alboreto, fourth. Arnoux is 43 seconds in fifth place behind Alboreto, who is fourth. Riccardo Patrese is now 2 seconds behind Arnoux. Stefan Johansson is seventh and lapped. And Alboreto goes past Ghinzani in the Alfa Romeo engine Osella. They had hoped to have the newer Motori Moderni engine in it here, but have not. And they're soldiering on with the old Alfa Romeo, which is now sadly past it. And Prost really now, with what, 12 laps to go, is in a very commanding position. He can lose something like 1.5 seconds a lap to his teammate Keke Rosberg and still win. And frankly, he richly deserves to. He's driven a magnificent race, tactically, watched his fuel. But we are watching the gap from Prost to Rosberg, because it looks to us as though it's starting to come down a bit. We see those little vortices pluming up from the rear wing, and there is the second Tyrrell out of the race, and it looks as though the gap between Rosberg and Prost is declining. And my apologies, that's the Ligier there of René Arnoux out of the race, who was in fifth place. So that means to say that Patrese is up the place, and Johansson is now in the points with his Ferrari teammate Alboreto.
Yes, and in fact, Prost really isn't bothered. He's got bags of time in hand. He's well over 20 seconds ahead of Rosberg, who isn't really making any impression. Much more important to Rosberg is the fact that Piquet and Alboreto, who are battling away behind, are actually closing on him, although they're still some 15 seconds behind, Piquet is, but he is definitely bringing that gap down, and in fact the gap has now come down to 14 seconds, so Piquet is catching Rosberg. Prost is just driving along in front, watching the gap, holding station, to Keke, but Keke's big worry now must be the attack from behind.
There's Prost going up the hill from the Tosa Bend towards the Piratella, and he is on now his 49th lap, the race leader, with well over 20 seconds between himself and Keke Rosberg. He will know exactly what the situation is from his pit signals in his 91st Grand Prix, of which he has already won 21, 15 pole positions. He's got 296.5 World Championship points. Very, very successful. Yes, Nelson Piquet has won more World Championships than Alain Prost, because Piquet's won 2 and Prost has won 1, but Alain Prost has won more Grand Prix. He's coming through seemingly well on his way to win another one, because the gap is now fairly steady between himself and Keke Rosberg second, Piquet still in 3rd position, Alboreto still 4th, Patrese still 5th, Arnoux out of the race, Johansson 6th, Berger 7th, Boutsen 8th. And Arnoux parked the car, got out of it and sadly walked away, having done so well in Brazil to finish 4th on his reappearance to Grand Prix racing. And there's confirmation. Prost, Rosberg, Piquet, Alboreto, Patrese, Johansson. So Ferrari, who have yet to score a World Championship point this year, look as though they're going to get points for 4th and 6th places. Prost. A masterly design by John Barnard, who brought that car out in 1983, updated it a little in 1984. World champion, 1985, world champion Alain Prost. World championship for the constructors for McLaren in both 1984 and 1985. He's modified the car again this year to take into account the fact that the fuel limit has been reduced this year from 220 litres to 195 litres, and with the Porsche design tag engine and the Bosch engine management system, that really does remain the package to beat in Grand Prix racing this year, although of course it was beaten in Brazil and Spain, and very conclusively too, with just Prost finishing in 3rd position in Spain. And Jonathan Palmer is out of the San-Marino Grand Prix in his Zaxby.
And meanwhile, Keke Rosberg has, in fact, responded to the fact that Piquet and Alboreto were catching him, and is now holding the gap round about somewhere between 14 and 15 seconds. So the group are, and Prost is still cruising along in front. He's able to hold the gap pretty much as he pleases, and I'm quite sure he's got plenty of fuel in hand, and he certainly can slow down quite considerably and use considerably less power, and he'll still get there comfortably ahead of the others. So Prost's only concern now is to make no mistakes himself, keep everything tidy, and keep his fingers crossed that the McLaren holds together, and there's no reason to suppose it won't. They've been very reliable over the last couple of seasons. With the huge amount of success they've had, it's still much the same car, only a few mods, and so Prost will be just nursing the car to the line now.
Yes, the two McLarens, 3rd and 4th in Spain, behind Senna and Mansell. And McLaren 2nd in the Constructors' Championship now. Michele Alboreto thought, and you now see Prost completing his 51st lap. So he's got 8 laps to go around this 3.13 mile, just over 5 kilometre course to complete the San Marino Grand Prix of 1986, having won the year before last and having thought he won last year. And he was bitterly disappointed last year because he was congratulating himself on what a fine race he had driven, because he had deliberately not allowed himself to go as fast as he could have gone, knowing that his fuel wouldn't last if he did. And to show how well Alain Prost, that you're looking at leading this year's race, judged his fuel last year, he actually ran
rundown lap, having taken the checkered flag first, only to find that his team engineers had made a miscalculation on weight and possible fuel consumption, due presumably to the speed of the race, and it was a mere 2 kilograms underweight that took the win away from Prost last year. And I can't imagine that that will happen this year. What happens, incidentally, at the end of the race is that the car goes into what is called the Parc Fermé. It is taken under the control of the FISA, the governing body of motorsport officials. The bag tank is emptied and then it is refilled. And if it takes more than 195 of fuel, then they're in trouble. The numbers say 1 Prost is leading, 2 Rosberg is second, 6 Piquet is third, 27 Alboreto is fourth. Only those 4 are now on the same lap, because Riccardo Patrese, who is fifth, has been lapped, as has Stefan Johansson and Gerhard Berger, who is seventh. Boutsen, who is eighth, has been lapped twice. His teammate Sura, who is ninth, has similarly been lapped twice. Martin Brundle, who is 10th, has been lapped twice. And 11th and 12th is Ginzani, and was René Arnoux, but is now out of the race. So effectively, there are only 11 cars still in contention. Now, there's something maybe a little significant, that Keke Rosberg has been unlapped by both Johansson and Berger, as I talked to you. But he's got such a lead over both of them, and they are in 6th and 7th places, that I don't think there's anything too significant. Lap 53 is the one that they are on now, and you look at Nelson Piquet on his way at the moment to 4 World Championship points, to add to the 9 that he already has, giving him 13. And it rather looks as though Ayrton Senna, who started this race on 15 points with his win in Spain and second place in Brazil, is still going to be leading the World Championship. Piquet. Alboreto's board, and here is Michele Alboreto in 4th position. Now the gap between himself and Piquet is 7 seconds, so if his fuel situation allows, now is the time, or very shortly, to turn up the turbo boost and go for it in an effort to get 3rd place away from the Williams Honda. You've seen Piquet go through, there is Alboreto.
The extraordinary thing is, out front, Prost is so confident, or he's judged things so well, that he's got so much in hand, he is still actually increasing the gap. He's pulled away a little bit from Rosberg and Piquet and Alboreto, so the gap has increased again. I suspect that part of that is that the 3 pursuers, Rosberg, Piquet and Alboreto, may be on a bit on the ragged edge for remaining fuel supplies, and maybe having to slow down a little bit on their engines while still driving hard, racing each other but on reduced power.
Desperately frustrating, of course, when you know you can go faster, but you can't, because if you do so, you will consume your allowed fuel before the end of the race. Well, that's the regulations. So 1 Prost leads, 2 Rosberg second, 6 Piquet that you're looking at third, 27 Alboreto is fourth, 7 Patrese is fifth, 28 Johansson is sixth, and as you heard, both Johansson and Berger have unlapped themselves, and here are Johansson and Berger, and Johansson is ahead of the Austrian in 6th position, but Berger is fighting hard for that place. Another opportunity for the lanky Austrian to get a World Championship point, and he's already done that twice by finishing 6th in both Brazil and Spain. He could do it again.
Yes, I'm glad we picked that battle up, because they've been at it hammer and tongs for some laps now. those two, and it's far and away the best battle on the circuit, and it's livened up by having lapsed air machinery. And there goes Berger. He took advantage of the problems with the back markers, and Berger is past Johansson. Now, can he get away from him? They've still got one back marker, and I think Johansson's having a look, and this really is the best dice of the race.
Yes, indeed it is. Now, they're both being held up. It's Martin Brundle in front of them in the Tyrrell, and Berger through. Brundle stays out of the way. Johansson goes through. So, new sixth-place man at the end of the lap, Gerhard Berger, pulling away from Johansson. And it may well be that the BMW, which should be all right on fuel consumption, can take a bit more boost.
Well, yes, either Johansson made a bit of a mistake coming out of the last corner there, the right-hander, or else he's a bit short on traction, because he lost a lot of ground to Berger. The Benetton really seemed to grip and accelerate properly, and Johansson appeared to get a lot of wheel spin, and that's actually the area of the circuit where he wants to be very good, to get out of it very well, because that goes onto the longest straight on the circuit and offers the best opportunity for overtaking, but not, of course, if you're very slow. And here we see again as Berger nips through in a little bit of confusion caused by the two cars they were lapping. That's Martin Brundle, who's ahead of them there and doesn't let them through for a few more corners, and that was how a bit of opportunism by Berger to get himself past Steve Johnson.
Well, I remind you that Martin Brundle is in the old 014 Tyrrell, having seemingly crashed the new one for the second race in succession on the parade lap. We don't know what happened because we were up in the commentary box and weren't able to find out. But the fact remains that Brundle is in the old car. We're now on lap 57, 3 laps to go at the end of this one. Looking at race leader Alain Prost coming through to complete that lap, leading Keke Rosberg by 27 seconds. It's going to be, if they stay as they are, a first and second, 15 points for McLaren in the Constructors' Championship, and that is a very real boost, or will be, which puts them right in contention for the Constructors' Championship for the third year in succession. Nelson Piquet, 32 seconds behind Prost, 5 seconds behind Rosberg in third position. Michele Alboreto in fourth place, now 17 seconds behind Piquet. Patrese, fifth, has been lapped. Berger has just gone up to sixth, and you saw it has been lapped. Johansson is seventh. Thierry Boutsen is in eighth position, and Mark Surer is ninth, with Martin Brundle in 10th place. And only 10 cars effectively running, because now Ghinzani is virtually out of the running too.
And Piquet's putting on a real charge now and is starting to threaten Rosberg. That was Ghinzani just being pushed away there, so his race is all over. But Piquet is the man to watch, and there he is. He has caught Rosberg, and I suspect Rosberg is in a certain amount of fuel consumption problem. I suspect he's got very little left and can't respond, but it's not so much that he's slowed down, because Piquet, with this charge, has also put in the fastest lap, got a new lap record under the 129, 28.982, and he is ready to attack Rosberg. Now, they go on to the longest straight on the circuit. I expect Rosberg will turn his boost up for this, but I don't think he'll be able to hold Nelson Piquet off for very long, even if he can survive this one. And Piquet's right with him now, and in the right place to take the inside line for the corner. Oh, Rosberg squeezing him out a little bit, and he's denied Piquet this time. He's a hard man, Keke Rosberg, hard but fair, I must add. He's a very experienced driver, and he's a very tough one, but he doesn't do anything silly or unpredictable in the car, so Piquet knows what he's up against.
2 laps to go at the end of this one, and Nelson Piquet and Keke Rosberg fighting for second position and the 6 World Championship points that go with it. Some 25 points behind the seemingly secure race leader and potential winner, Alain Prost. Into the pits comes Michele Alboreto in 4th position. Why? Tyres
Now, not surprisingly, our Italian producer is staying with the Ferrari, but meantime there's that colossal scrap going on between Rosberg and Piquet for second place, and this is a poor pit stop for Alboreto.
And Piquet's really flying. He's reduced the lap record again, down to a 28.6, and he is right with Keke Rosberg. Alboreto obviously didn't come in just for tires. With 2 laps to go, he must be in some sort of mechanical trouble, and it's got to be serious, because he would have done everything he could to limp round, but this is trouble for Alboreto. So a great shame. He's had a tremendous run.
And a marvellous boost for Brabham, because that means to say that Riccardo Patrese will go up a place, and there is Piquet taking Rosberg, who's stopping, slowing right down. Out of the race goes Keke Rosberg.
And I'm sure Rosberg, or I would strongly suspect that Rosberg, pressured by Piquet, used too much boost, and his eyes went to his mirrors rather than to his fuel gauge, and I think Piquet has probably forced him into that. Not so Alain Prost, who still enjoys a 23-second lead on Nelson Piquet, although that'll come down a little bit with the charge. But Piquet has got it easy now, because he's in second place and he can back right off, because Rosberg has stopped, and Alboreto, whose only other threat, is in the pits looking to be terminally in there.
Did you see Alain Prost take a cautious look into his mirror there to see whether there was anybody behind him? He's coming through now to complete lap 59 and to start the last lap, and he really is touring. The engine note goes right down as he passes our commentary position, and Michele Alboreto's stricken Ferrari is wheeled out of the race. We wait for Nelson Piquet to go through in second place, and it's Prost leading now then, with Nelson Piquet in second place, but nearly 20 seconds behind Prost. Piquet, the fastest on the course, new lap record, 1:28.7. In third position now is Riccardo Patrese, fourth is Berger, fifth is Johansson, and sixth should be Thierry Boutsen.
And Alain Prost just making real sure that he gets the line. He's limping, just limping very slowly round, and there is Patrese in the Brabham, and looks to me to be out of fuel on the last lap. But Prost has really driven an absolutely magnificent race here. His tactics were quite brilliant. He sat happily behind the leading, at the back of the leading group in the first half of the race. I'm sure he was using their slipstream to tow him round so that he could run less power, save fuel, and he waited, as I predicted, till he changed tyres, and then he went for a blistering pace. He came out of the pits with the boost turned up with plenty of fuel, and Prost has slowed right down, and Prost is out of fuel. So Prost is, you see him waggling the car. That is to try and shake some petrol into the thing. He's within sight of the line. If he can just limp, he'll make it. And they're all running out of him, and he's got to go the engine, and Prost is going to make it, because he can coast it to the line from here, surely.
But Berger is right behind him and was in third place and seems to have caught Piquet. Prost is crossing the line, but Berger's going to get there before him. But Berger's slow, and Prost is across. Now, Spain was fantastic, but San Marino has been even more incredible. That is exactly what happened to Alain Prost last year, except that he's run out of fuel even earlier than he did last year on the rundown lap. Now, Berger was a lap behind Alain Prost. Let's have no confusion about that. So Alain Prost has won. Nelson Piquet in second place. Gerhard Berger will be in third position, and at the end of a monumentally exciting San Marino Grand Prix, that's all I can tell you for sure at the present moment. Alain Prost has won his first World Championship race of 1986. The world champion has, as James said, won a superb race. There is the confirmation, with Berger third, Johansson in fourth place, Rosberg fifth, and Patrese sixth.
Ziel, wo eigentlich noch 4-5 Autos kommen müssten, kommt überhaupt niemand mehr. Max Surer steht ganz kurz vor der Ziellinie. Sie können es hier nicht sehen. Das heißt also, dass es auch Max Surer nicht geschafft hat, die Ziellinie zu passieren. Nein, Max Surer steigt etwa, ich würde sagen, 600 Meter vor der Ziellinie aus seinem Wagen. Der Aero steht auf der Zielgeraden, während hier in der Wiederholung noch einmal zu sehen ist, wie durch die Lenkbewegung der Alain Prost versucht, so die letzten Tropfen Benzin eigentlich in den Motor zu bekommen, aus dem Tank zu schütteln, wie da gerade aus Luxemburg richtig geflüstert wird. Ja. Also es ist schon ein Wahnsinn, wie dieses Rennen zu Ende geht. Und man sieht hier unten sehr, sehr lange Gesichter. Und es fehlen immer noch Fahrzeuge. Es fehlen immer noch Fahrzeuge hier oben, die die Ziellinie nicht passiert haben. Es ist Johansen noch nicht durchgekommen. Es ist Butze noch nicht durchgekommen. Brandl, vielleicht haben wir ihn noch übersehen. Ich weiß es nicht genau. Hier sehen wir Stefan Johansson. Also Johansson ist durch. Aber der Sieger des dritten Laufes zur Formel 1 Weltmeisterschaft 1986 heißt Alain Prost. Gesamtfahrzeit 1 Stunde 32 Minuten und 28 Sekunden. Und mit 7 Sekunden Rückstand dann Nelson Piquet. Hier haben wir die Reihenfolge der Weltmeisterschaft. Senna hat 15 Punkte, Piquet hat ebenfalls 15 Punkte, Sie haben es eben gesehen. Dann kommt Prost mit 13 Punkten. Ja, Hubert, ich glaube, du aus der Sicht des Rennfahrers, wie siehst du so etwas, wenn ein Rennen so beendet wird?
Ja, man konnte sehen, dass der McLaren leichter rollt als der Benetton in der letzten Phase. Aber ich muss trotzdem sagen, wenn man mit kleinem Ladedruck fährt, muss man dennoch in den Kurven eben ganz scharf fahren, genauso hart an der Grenze fahren als Rennfahrer, wie wenn man mit hohem Ladedruck fährt. Man fährt also nicht langsamer um die Kurven, man fährt einfach nur langsamer auf der Geraden. Mit weniger Leistung heißt also, man muss härter als Rennfahrer kämpfen, um trotzdem seine Position zu behalten. Und man konnte auch bei Alain Prost sehen, dass er sehr intelligent gefahren ist in der ersten Phase, in der ersten Hälfte, dass er im Windschatten vom Keke sehr viel Benzin gespart hat und einfach auch sein Material geschont hat. Das fand ich eigentlich ganz gut.
Ja, wobei natürlich bei Keke auch noch dazu kam, dass er viel zu lange an der Box gestanden hat und dass er dadurch natürlich auch mit ein bisschen mehr Ladedruck versucht hat, wieder Anschluss zu finden.
Dann wäre er noch früher ausgefallen.
Nee. Er hat also, nachdem er an der Box war, schon versucht wieder, wie man ja an den Zeiten sehen konnte, Anschluss zu finden. Und das hat mehr Sprit gekostet. Sonst wäre er vielleicht auch dann eben über die Distanz gekommen. Aber was sollen wir da spekulieren? Ich glaube, dass man jetzt in der Box und auch bei den Computerfachleuten genug zu tun hat, um das nachzurechnen. Obwohl sich eigentlich jeder darüber im Klaren war, dass das große Risiko das Benzin sein würde, die Reifen und die Bremsen. Und wie im letzten Jahr auch, hat hier eigentlich das Benzin mitentschieden, wobei man sagen muss, dass Alain Prost dieses Rennen wirklich sehr verdient gewonnen hat. Und hier sehen wir nun Alain Prost auf dem Siegerpodest. Nelson Piquet wird gleich dazukommen. Jean-Marie Balestre, der höchste Chef der FISA, im schwarzen Blazer hier. Ein Mann, der sehr viel von sich reden machte in der letzten Zeit im Duell mit Bernie Ecclestone. Und ich glaube, dass der Alain Prost Balestre jetzt genau erklärt, was los war, wie es mit dem Benzin gelaufen ist. Aber dem, glaube ich, kann das im Augenblick völlig egal sein. Er steht auf dem Podest, er hat seine 9 Punkte und er ist gleich auf mit Senna jetzt. Nein, das stimmt nicht, das ist nicht. Doch, ist gleich auf mit Senna weit vorne. Prost hat jetzt, wir rechnen gerade mal hier, 9, 13, 16 Punkte. Also ist er Dritter in der Weltmeisterschaft.
Jetzt muss Alain Prost nur noch beten, dass er nicht zu wenig Gewicht hat.
Ja, wie im letzten Jahr, denn im letzten Jahr sah es ja ähnlich aus. Im letzten Jahr kam er ja auch als Erster über die Ziellinie und dann waren es die 2000.
Als Niki Lauda vor Alain Prost gewonnen hat, wieder ein Österreicher auf einem Siegerpodest der Formel 1 unter den ersten 3 eines Grand-Prix. Erste Glückwünsche hier von Theo Fabi, seinem Teamkollegen. Eine Sternstunde heute für Gerhard Berger im Autodrom von Imola. gerade auf Italienisch gesagt, wenn ich es richtig verstanden habe, Frizione, das sind Probleme, die er mit der Kupplung gehabt hat, nicht mit den Bremsen. So lautete nämlich die Frage des Reporters. Aller Prost. Martin Brandl kommt zu Fuß zurück, auf ihn ist der Sprit ausgegangen, der englische Tyrrell-Fahrer ist Achter geworden. Endergebnis, Prost, Erster nach 1 Stunde 32 Minuten 28,4 Sekunden, zweiter Piquet minus 7 Sekunden. Jetzt die Gratulation von Berger und von Piquet. Berger und Piquet kennen einander schon vom gemeinsamen Skifahren her. Berger und Prost kannten einander bis jetzt noch nicht. Piquet, Prost und Berger. Gerhard Berger, ich bin sicher, er wird in Zukunft noch öfter mit solchen Spitzenfahrern bei der Siegerehrung eines Grand Prix zu sehen sein. Und jetzt erzählen einander natürlich Prost und Berger, wie sie selber diese dramatischen letzten Meter mitverfolgt haben. Bravo, Gerhard Berger, herzlichen Glückwunsch zu diesem 3. Platz im Grand Prix von San-Marino. Meine Damen und Herren, mit diesen Bildern von der Siegerehrung gebe ich zurück nach Wien. Danke Ihnen fürs Zuschauen. Nächster Grand Prix, heute in 2 Wochen, Monte Carlo.
Deputato al Turismo e Sport della Repubblica San-Marino consegna il trofeo ad Alain Prost, vincitore.
Smart engine, although luckily Prost himself had been even smarter.
I was very surprised. I was running out of fuel 3 or 4 corners before the end because I said the computer showed me 3 liters advance. But at this time I said, shit again, I'm going to lose this Grand Prix. I lost last year for 2 kilos less. And about fuel, that's why, you know, I was always against this regulation because you can lose or win because 1 liter or half liter. But it's I was lucky today and I think it's good for me.
But not even the fuel ration hampers the champers.
My tactic was very simple. I went minimum boost again, but I pushed very, very hard on the car, especially under braking, and everything was perfect. The handling was even better with fresh tires than at the beginning.
But in spite of that, you still ran out of fuel on the last lap. What was going through your mind then?
You know, I was very confident about the computer because this computer was not working very well in Spain, and just before start we set up the computer very pessimistic. So Bosch people and TAC Bosch people told me that I could run until 0, and I had 3 liters advance. So I was very confident. I said, no problem, I can even do 1 lap after the finish line just to say hello to the crowd. And I was very surprised that I was running out of fuel, and it was I was very lucky to finish the race. Just doing like that, you know, it was very lucky.
Well, a magnificent drive. Congratulations from all your fans at Grand Prix. And this Grand Prix racing is turning out to be real nail-biting stuff this year, isn't it? Well, in 2 weeks' time, Monaco. Alain Prost has won there before, goodness knows, and he could well be taking the World Championship lead. Join us and see for yourselves.